Hey guys, it's Jeff. Hopefully you can hear me, but thanks you for joining us for a very special edition of VKH Live. Um, I will be starting shortly. As you can tell, things are a little different this time. So look forward to some cool changes in the stream. I'll see you shortly. Starting in 30. See you in a second. 30 seconds, not minutes. Okay, and we are live, hopefully. What's going on, everybody? Yeah, I see myself coming up on the stream here. Welcome to a very special version of VKH Live. I'm your host, Jeff DeWitt. I am the only one that could actually, that was able to make it tonight, unfortunately. But Winona will be back soon. She's very... she's working very hard at finals and just being a badass site owner and all that. She will be back on the next stream. But tonight is a very special stream. So I thought since it's just going to be me and you guys chat, so we do some like really some have some fun and like play around with the format a little bit. So as you can see. Hopefully you can see. If you guys can let me know in the chat if this is all coming through, that would be perfect. At least that my sound and everything. We're doing a different format tonight. We are changing up the format. We're going to be changing it up a little bit more and upgrading things over time. So this is kind of the first step in that. But tonight's topic is a very special topic. Like I said, I will stop vamping now. Sorry. Let me pull up my notes here. So yeah, Hide from X Japan, 20th anniversary of his passing recently occurred, and as a result, this wasn't something that like I wanted to let go by without, really getting into. Those of you on the stream probably know that I'm more into like, modern bands than like the classics. Winona's made fun of me plenty of times on stream for, for example, Moi Dis-moi. I was very unfamiliar with it first, Mouse Misère. But of all the, the classics and everything, the one that is, I was immediately drawn to years and years ago was Hide. I found X Japan, then I found Hide, and just in like reviewing and getting ready for this stream, it involved a lot of listening to Hide's music, and I hadn't done that in a while, and so it really was a big reminder that it's just like such a healthy kind of music to listen to the point where I think it might actually literally be healthy for me to start like putting them on my regular playlist and things like that. I'm sure all of you kind of have your own way of feeling like why Hide is amazing and things like that. But for those of you who aren't familiar, just in case, Hide was the lead guitarist of X Japan, and he died back in. I can pull up the actual date, but he died around 1990. Well, he died in 1998 because it's the 20th anniversary, and this was like this was the Kurt Cobain of Japan. Kurt Cobain from Nirvana times 10. It was a big deal losing him. But more importantly, it was a big deal what he did in life, to the point where it's still affecting and setting trends for the visual kei scene today. So this is going to be this might be a more developed stream, it might not, but I want to interact with the chat a lot if there's any of you around. So above me, what you're going to see throughout this are some chat questions. The first one, obviously, right up there is how did you discover Hide? Feel free to leave it at any point, just in the chat. I will be checking chat periodically. This is going to be like semi-informative, but mostly like just commenting on like just as many aspects of Hide's career as I can cover before you guys get tired of watching me, basically. And then also below me, this would be a quick housekeeping announcement. So you should see a message that says send a message and support VKH and then a link to Streamlabs. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the description as well so that you actually see it. So basically what this is this is all kind of, if you follow any other streamers, I can't believe I just called myself a streamer, to be honest, but if you followed any streamers on YouTube or anywhere, you're probably familiar with Streamlabs, and maybe some of the the layout of this video kind of looks familiar. So we're kind of at that point where we are upgrading. And so what we've done is we've opened an account with Streamlabs, which is going to help us in the future be able to how do I say it, like very get like much more hands-on with like interacting with the chat. So it basically makes it really easy for like the chat to come up on the screen and things like that. Now you can do all kinds of stuff. The chat can get read out. You guys can send gifts and things like that. So we wanted to get that integrated because we've been doing this long enough that like we wanted to get like kind of serious about it. Just really make it go from the Hangouts, the Google Hangouts casual thing, to a more professional level that we like to have the rest of our content at VKH, which our home site, for not familiar, is vkh-press.com. Just kind of like adding that extra level of polish. So you're going to see, more changes like this in the future. It's going to get more polished. We're going to get Winona involved. She's going to help me make it pretty and everything, but I did my best for the first time. So back to the link. So part of the features of Streamlabs, it basically gives us access to a tip jar. So we're going ahead and using that. I'm just going to preface this by saying this is not required at all by you guys. We're just doing it just cause. And so basically, if you click on that link and you go to Streamlabs, you can send a message to us, and you can send a dollar amount. And that what you're doing is you're donating that's going to VKH directly, and it's helping. It'll go to help support running the site. We are actually a volunteer-run site, so that probably, if you didn't know that might kind of explain this a bit more. We're not actually, we're a volunteer-run site, and so any expenses or anything extra that we do like this is either it's either paid by ads that we run on the site and things like that, or it's self-funded by the owners. Myself and Winona and Sophia are the owners of VKH. So any amount that you would be interested in giving, we're kind of aware that people might be interested in this in the past, so we wanted to try it out here. And basically the real reason why I like this idea is because it also allows me to be able to basically, donating like guarantees that whatever you put gets read on air. That's kind of the spoken rules of how this will work. So it's a guaranteed message. So that's why it says send a message. I know I'm rambling a little bit. I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain it. But again, totally not required. I read the chat as much as I possibly can. But if I can't, but there's sometimes where I do miss something. So if there's something that you really want to see, or you feel like supporting the site, feel free to send that. We very much appreciated. Checking chat. Let's see. I just saw some things. Yeah. So Twitch. Yeah, go to Twitch with this so we can send you bits. Okay, I'll look into that because we're looking into Twitch and stuff like that as well. But so that's the general concept. Again, totally not required. It's mostly just to help support the site. Can't you get donations here on YouTube? I've seen it on other streams. You can, but only at that's through a partnership program you enter with YouTube, and we don't quite meet the requirements yet, but thanks to you guys, we're like on schedule to do that, and that's much more integrated and convenient. And so we'll just enable that once we're there. But there's a certain there's a certain level of watch time and things like that. So, and by the way, I know this is all kind of like house cleaning, so or housekeeping. So in the meantime, feel free to answer that question. I see him rolling, and I appreciate that. I appreciate I appreciate the chat responding to the questions already. This is going great. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that. The last thing I'll add is that keep in mind that whatever you send, I have to read within reason. So keep this in mind for future discussions, our more interesting ones and things like that. So this can make for some interesting interactivity. So for example, like if I say something about a band that you don't like because I'm kind of opinionated like that, you can drop $1 and then make me read a message that completely like contradicts my own belief and watch me squirm doing that and things like that. So that was the first use case that popped into my head. I think there's certain people here that might jump at that opportunity. I may have just set myself up or something, but yeah. Anyway, etc. Okay, so I will get to reading the chat answer or the question in a bit. They're going to change periodically, or the answers in the chat to the question in a bit. They're going to change periodically, every 10 minutes or so. But there's going to be. Let me kind of give like a general summary of like how this is going to go down. I'm kind of just going to go through like some of the history of Hide in a semi-informative, semi-not informative sort of style, but really more to give commentary and allow you guys to like talk about how you feel. So we're just going to go through like his history, early life, ex-Japan solo career, maybe some other aspects if we have time. Like I said, I will be checking chat intermittently. There will be questions intermittently. At the end of all that, we'll talk about his death. We'll talk about his legacy, all kinds of stuff like that. I'm gonna have a little section at the end. I'm gonna save it for the end just so we can get into like the some meatier stuff at the beginning. But I'm gonna give my opinion at the end about what I like about Hide, and I'll open it up to chat for like what they like. That's one of the questions actually, and so we're going to just kind of see how this goes. If the show starts to drag on too long, but there's enough interest, I may actually end this stream just so that it's easier to view in the future, and then we'll move. I may open up another stream and just kind of make it like a chat interaction thing. If I do that, I will post a link. So, with that. You're probably wondering what this article is, and I'm going to get to it in a second. But it's a good... but first I'm going to read the answers to the chat. So let's see. Trim says, well, I discovered X through an old VK forum, so I discovered the band first. Awesome, yeah. So you found him, and then you found Hide. That was the same way as me. Emily says, for my answer, I was only a baby at the time Hide passed. I learned about him through a friend who introduced me to J-Rock, and I read a lot about what happened to Hide. Awesome. I know how Yoshiki felt losing his best friend to suicide. It's the toughest. I know how it feels. Yeah, that stuff really does kind of choke me up because it's really rough what they went through, and I think a lot of us, depression and suicide, even caused by depression, they're very prevalent. So I'm sure a lot of us that listen to it are at least tangentially familiar with that issue in some way or another. So to see someone like really star-studded like that, go through the exact same thing, it's like, you'd think it would be, relieving or feel nice, but it's like you just really hurt for them because you're like, oh my God, like, I know how it feels. Let's see. Asuka clarifying for donations on YouTube. YouTube takes a percentage. Streamlabs eliminates that. Yeah, there's also that. But I'm still debating if we're going to go through YouTube. I'm personally not opposed to letting YouTube take its cut so that it's integrated right in. For me, I'm just gonna have to analyze how much I enjoy what their chat setup is. I'm a little skeptical, to be honest, because I do live stream. So if you guys have any comments that you want to leave about how you think this stream looks or is going, or what you'd like to see from the stream, or things you don't like, does the live chat work fine for you? Is there is there too, is it too hard to just send anything? You can send it in the chat, but to really make sure that I see it, because I do read video comments, you can read it, or you can write it as a comment when the video is done and it's processed, so it'll be up tomorrow. I discovered Hide-san from finding out about X Japan. Yeah, so lots of people finding out. Most J-Rockers I know remember him and feel his death deeply. Hisoku. I actually don't know much about Hide. I knew of X Japan, but I never got into it, and learned about Hide himself when they made a private Vocaloid of him some years back. Trem correcting me, he did not commit suicide though. Yes, sorry. I shouldn't use that actual terminology. The correct terminology is he killed himself, and the suicide is in debate, and we'll get into that. I won't jump into that too much, but yeah, good call, Trim. Slip of the tongue there. I am going to address what Yoshiki and Taiji said about that as well. So, it's not really in debate, but it's technically on paper in debate. So, yeah. Okay, so let me go ahead. Give me 1 second. I'm going to update the chat with the next question. Hope everyone's having a good night. Happy Cinco de Mayo, by the way. I did not partake in any celebrations yet because I was preparing for this. I was having a bunch of fun. Let's see how I want to ask this. I was having a bunch of fun setting this up, so... Yeah, okay, that's... and you guys have sort of answered this already. I'll leave it kind of ambiguous. No, you know what? Let me reword it just for a second. How often do you listen to Hide, and which music? Okay, yeah, that's what I want to know. Let me adjust this. Okay, cool. Yeah, so how often do you listen to Hide, and which music? So X Japan, solo career, like Hide with Spread Beaver, tribute versions of stuff, if you want to count that. Yeah. So before we move on, I want to read this article, and then we're going to have some special statements that are just like generally surrounding, that are just generally summarizing Hide, but it's going to be from some special guest who couldn't make it tonight. So Lori has sent an audio clip, Lori from Fake Star, and Winona has sent me a written message, so I'm going to make sure their message gets across. But the first thing I wanted to do is read this article, and we can go ahead and do that now. I will just check the stream real quick. Make sure you guys are still with me. Yep, sounds good. Looks good. Cool. I did things. All right. So I was actually really pleasantly surprised when I first found this article because it is by a guy. So this is in the New York Times, right? But it's by maybe I can zoom in a little bit more. But it's by a guy named Neil Strauss, who's actually, in my opinion, he's a very prolific writer. Like, he writes for a number of big name magazines and things like that. But I've heard his name around for a while. He used to write at Rolling Stone. Like he wrote a lot at Rolling Stone, and he has a very crazy, adventurous, list of books and things like that, but he's really tuned to music. He's a really good writer, and I really think he kind of nailed like a lot of what was going on right around the time that Hide killed himself. So it's a different take. It's on his death. I'm going to say Hide's death until we get to the part where we talk about Hide. Until we talk about his death, but this was right when it was happening. This was in 1998, and it was just a commentary on the general atmosphere at the time. I'm gonna probably go ahead and read the whole thing fairly quickly. It's not a long article, but it is very engaging. So I hope you find it as well. So okay, so. And jumping into the number one spot this week, announced Hiroshi Morita from the studios of NHK Radio here last week, is Pink Spider by Hide. As you may already know, Hide is the former guitarist of the group X Japan who shocked his fans by committing suicide recently. So again, keep in mind this was, right afterwards. So the death was, I believe the death was ruled a suicide. So this was before We Are X came out. This was before Taiji's autobiography came out, which if you're not sure what I'm talking about, we'll get to. The studio began to buzz with murmuring. His record company says it was an accident, said one engineer, as those around him laughed. The label also says it's sticking with Hide's original release plan, said another. There was more laughter. At newsstands, Hide's face graces the cover of almost every music magazine. In shopping districts, outfits like his sell for several $100s. On television, his videos are repeated as often as commercials, and in record stores, his singles are everywhere. Below Pink Spider in the Japanese top 10 was a previous Hide single, Rocket Dive. And this week, Pink Spider was knocked out of the number one spot by another single, Stay Free, also by Hide. In just a few weeks, pop culture in Japan had gone from mourning Hide's death to consuming it. So yeah, it's a little kind of a dark take, a little grim take in the beginning, but I think it's important to kind of point this out is that I think one of the things that's more tragic about Hide is that he turned out to be such a sweet person, and the music industry can be very heartless. But one of the really heartwarming things is that, keep in mind, this was written right at the time. So it was, but over time, his fans have increased and have been so devoted and warm. And that's one of the things I really seem to enjoy about Visual K fans, about X fans, about J-Rock fans in general. So there's so much less consumerism, I want to say, in it. And a lot more of like an emotional attachment, and that's scary for anyone who creates like content of any kind, especially people who make art, like bands and stuff. Like, it's a scary commitment, it's a scary risk to take, to put yourself out there and expect that people will accept your art as art and not just as a product, this is kind of like a good analysis of the times and stuff like that. And thankfully it didn't end up going like that. Thankfully it didn't end up going the way I see a lot of high profile like US artists, which is like they die and then it is consumed. So it's kind of an American take on it, because this guy's covered all kinds of American pop culture. So all right, back to the article. Hide was the intensely charismatic guitarist in X Japan, one of the country's first and most successful independent label rock acts, though the band later signed with a major label, and the first Japanese rock band to sell out the 50,000-seat Tokyo Dome. Since it formed in the mid-1980s, X Japan went from playing loud, fast thrash metal to stadium-shaking pop ballads, in the process pioneering its own genre, a Japanese equivalent of glam rock known as Visual Kei. You know, it was still a pretty fresh idea back then, too. For Visual Kei bands, outrageous, usually androgynous looks, gobs of we know this part. I'm going to skip down. When X members followed in the steps of American hard rock bands like Metallica and cut their hair in the 90s, thousands of Japanese girls wept openly in the streets. This is the kind of kind of gives you a context of just how big it was in Japan at the time, like how big a thing this was. A big writer, published a story in the New York Times, and thousands of people crying in the streets when they cut their hair and things like that, so X actually signed with Atlantic Records in the United States, but the band never released an album at home. It broke up late last year, and Hide began to emerge from the shadow of the band's most popular member, the drummer Yoshiki, who released a classical album with the Beatles' producer George Martin and the Philharmonic Orchestra. With a blossoming solo career, everything seemed to be going well for Hide until around May 2nd, when he was found dead in his apartment, a towel looped around his neck and tied to the bathroom doorknob. Within a week, 5 teenage girls had tried to kill themselves while playing X music or wearing X merchandise. 3 succeeded, which is also it's really fucked up. So, by the way, if it goes without saying, and you don't have to hear it from me, I'm just here to entertain and talk with you about stuff. But if something awful like this happens to you, or someone leaves you like this, please don't follow them. Just for the sake of everybody else around you and your mutual friends of them and things like that. Please remember how much of a life, please try and think, or ask someone to tell you if you can't think of, all the ways that you're valuable to people and things like that. Yoshiki actually had to make a statement asking the fans to refrain, to say, please stay calm and please stay with us, and go through this together with us. So it's not going to be all dark, guys. Don't worry. I know it's kind of sad, but we're gonna do a little happy, a little sad. The VKH live roller coaster of emotions. Brian Burton Lewis, a radio and video show host who toured with Hide, was a disc jockey. As a disc jockey, said the funeral was the most crowded ever for a post-war Japanese musician, which was surprising considering that hardly anyone over 30 knew who he was. The wake was sad, he remembered. I was sitting in there for hours, and all you could hear outside was kids screaming from the bottom of their stomachs. They sounded like demons. In Japan, the image that we have of the X audience is rural kids going through a rebellion phase. They put their life into being X fans. They dress like it. They breathe it. They all talk about how he gave them something to live for. He's literally not exaggerating, by the way, if you're not familiar. If you go watch the We Are X documentary, they have some nice quality footage of the outside of Hide's funeral, and fans are literally wailing in the streets. They are beside themselves with grief. It's really disconcerting to watch. So if you're kind of an empathetic person or a sympathetic person, just be warned, because you're going to be really sad watching it. But it was just a phenomenon, he was a phenomenon, and it was the death of one of the biggest icons in the Japanese music industry. So a lot of what Hide did was grotesque. He's talked about suicide in his records for 5 years, but the fans who followed him always knew there was a Hide behind that who was a very solid character. He was very outspoken about freedom and doing what you want. and he took on a fan who had a rare bone marrow disease as a personal crusade. Oh man, what a great guy. While the authorities decided that Hide killed himself, his friends and former band members said they felt certain it was not suicide despite the dark lyrics of some X and Hide songs. So you can see the media's already kind of running with the suicide narrative right after, you find that he dies, because they kind of, I don't know. I don't want to cast judgment on any outlet that covered this, but when conservative media outlets, when more, or just media outlets that aren't familiar with an exotic subculture, and they see these crazy looking kids, and they hear the wild stuff that they're singing about and stuff, and then one of them ends up dead, they assume it was drugs or they assume it was suicide. So, just wanted to point that out. Most remembered Hide as a character who would go out of control when he was drunk, often getting himself into some sort of trouble and then claiming not to remember a thing the next day. His death in this strange circumstance, they said, was a drunken accident. I know Sukso, the guitarist from Lunacy, who plays in X as a replacement to Hide, he said in We Are X that he felt that Hide was rushing towards death. So this specific cause of death does kind of seem like an out of the blue thing, but if you were to read into it and or watch something like We Are X, it's very much it's a very I almost want to say artistic. It's almost beautifully tragic kind of a thing, because he was that it just very much just a chaotic guy. He loved really hard and he hurt really hard and stuff like that. So but Sukso said like he always had a feeling he was going to die young, just because he was so he just was rushing towards death. Things like the getting drunk is like very emotional people, sometimes it's not, I mean, I'm not going to make any judgments on or passing making judgments on Hide. I don't know him, but just from personal relationships and stuff, I can say like people that are very emotionally are affected very emotionally strongly. If that gets out of control, over drinking and things like that, can happen. Like if they're in a party scene and they're used to being the life of the party, and then one day they go out, but instead of being really happy, they're really depressed. People can turn to alcohol to try and like change that, in the moment, and then you black out and things like that. So I've seen that happen, when I used to go out and stuff like that. So, I saw him a few days before he passed away, and I had no indication from him that anything was wrong other than that he was exhausted, said Paul Raven, an English musician who played bass in Killing Joke and Prong. Mr. Raven recently formed an industrial hard rock band with Hide called Zilch. Its debut album will be released in Japan on July 23rd and features former members of Nine Inch Nails and The Cult. He was under a lot of pressure to finish his solo record, Mr. Raven continued. He had 3 songs completed the day before he died. And now, mysteriously, a full album is coming out 9 days before ours. So there was like a lot of... there was a lot of speculation over exactly how much of that last album was Hide, the Jazzu, from what I was reading. I've listened to that album all the way through, and I don't think it's my favorite album out of the 3 as a whole, but it has my favorite songs on it. So it does make me wonder if it was Hide and then like obviously Hide started some of it, or completed 3 of the tracks. He could have had them almost all done. I think it's a pointless argument to have, because I think Jazzu like fits fine in his discography. In some ways, Hide was reminiscent of Kurt Cobain of Nirvana, although Hide had a less bleak worldview. Hide, like Cobain, said he felt like a marginal, alternative-minded figure trapped in the image of a pop star. That's pretty crazy that he says that, because that was one thing I brought up with Shola Aurora, who's a New York-based visual kei artist that I had a stream with where he got into like how to do visual kei as an independent and international music artist. And we were talking about like the different musical directions the scene was going in. I said that I feel like if people were a bit more honest or just like upfront about the fact that there is a huge pop star element to this scene, then people might be able to like identify where trends are going better, or bands might be able to recognize that and control it, you know, as opposed to ignoring it and it getting out of control. You hear about egos causing breakups and things like that. The pop star is a commercialized ego in a lot of ways, you know. So that's crazy that it comes, you know, that it goes all the way back to him, because this guy, as we'll get into, he has influenced like so many different bands and things like that. So it's like the fact that he felt that too with the kind of music he was making is like, it's very validating for me being the guy that, you know, held that opinion, but it's really interesting to me. He despised the music business and wanted to change it. He represented a generation of fans who felt alienated, and his death represented the end of a genre. Good thing we brought it back, huh? But yeah, stuff like this is like what really just kind of makes him stick out as a good guy, hating the music industry, wanted to change it, you know. That touches a sore spot with me personally, because I'm really jaded about how like the U.S. music industry is handled. I shouldn't say jaded. I'm really critical of it. So anytime someone's like down to be a revolutionary about that, I'm down to help them out with it. Down to write an op-ed promoting it, you know. To a certain extent, Hide's death means the end of an era, said Steve McClure, Tokyo bureau chief for Billboard, the music industry magazine. X were the first generation of visual K bands, but the novelty has worn off. For the next generation, it's like, that's it. The torch has been passed to us. And I believe that's it. So, yeah. By the way, this is what the Streamlabs link looks like. I just had it up. I meant to show it earlier. We can only take PayPal right now, so sorry about that. I'll be working on this, like, you know, constantly, so it'll get fixed quicker. But since that's there, I'm going to leave this nice picture of Hide up for you. So what'd you guys think of that? Let me read the chat real quick. Let's see. So yeah, I just read that just because it's it really like tackles his death from like all these different angles, from the industry angle. It talks about the fans a little bit, talks about what his goals were, like what could have been. So hopefully we can get into a lot of that ourselves. Let's see. Okay, so for the current chat question, which I said, how often do you listen to Hide and which music? I saw some in here as well, so let's see. Asuka says, not very often. I've listened to a few tributes like Sadie's and Aoi's. I've listened to the originals a few times, but unfortunately I never got to have his music in my regular playlist. Yeah, I feel you. It's kind of difficult to get a hold of. Maybe I'll post some links to CD Japan, because I think they have his albums. Let's see. Let me switch over to live chat. Actually, I was in top chat. Live chat's where the party's at, because I can see exactly what's going through right as it goes through. So, let's see. Already feel the heavy atmosphere. Yeah. Trem says, I'm really into old school VK. X is one of my favorite bands, and I listen to Hide every now and then. Awesome. Trem says, the statement of Yoshiki to the fans, it's on the documentary. Yep, definitely. And We Are X is on Hulu and iTunes, according to Trem. I believe that's definitely the case. We have to talk someday about the drinking culture in Japan. It's kind of crazy. The drinking culture is awful. It's very forceful. And if you don't go out with your coworkers to drink, it can cost you your job. Yeah, it's I'm not happy that this is the legalized substance that our culture is based around. I'll just say that. Um, I mean, it's yeah, it's rough. Like looking at these rock stars and stuff. Like, I mean, the crazy like emotional roller coasters that some of them go on just from having being cursed with the mind of a creative artist, you know, and or and combine that with because that can be really stressful for people. People think it's like, oh, you're creative, that's a good thing, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but also if creative people don't create things, they kind of wither away and die. So they have to constantly be creating these things, and they're not easily monetizable. So they're always in these sticky, stressful situations, which I guess allows them to make more art based off of that. But yeah, so you take someone like that, you put them on a crazy touring schedule, and you introduce them to party culture and things like that, and yeah, people get out of control. I will say, I feel like the people that I met in my life who are the most rock star-ish, kind of people that live like seem like they live like these high flying lives and things like that. The reality of this situation is that unless they're only there doing that for like a few weeks, months, or years, and then they burn out, they're actually really disciplined behind the scenes, and it's just their personality just kind of gives off this wild go with the flow vibe. But a lot of them are at least emotionally very disciplined and things like that, the ones that really stick through it. So yeah, it's I won't ramble on this too much longer, but I could talk all night about crazy stuff like that. There are people who don't drink, but they will see you like a weirdo. Just tell them you're doing it for health reasons, and they'll leave you alone about it. I literally quit drinking for health reasons, so I could like get in shape and lose weight. Nobody gives me a problem about it. Um, but yeah, very emotional in the K-pop industry as well. This year we lost K-pop singers as well. Oh wow, I must be behind on that. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just not thinking about it. But yeah, also very emotional industry. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, and hopefully this will work. Again, I apologize if this doesn't quite work out. I'm going to try and play a message from Lori from V Star Entertainment. V Star Promotion. She's she. I'm getting my stars mixed up. But she works with Rides and her company V Star works with Rides and Rebellion, Deviloof, Morrigan, and Vivarush. I was missing one there, and she specializes in taking artists like newer artists with a lot of potential and making them really accessible to like global bands, or to a global audience, trying to basically working towards making them global bands. So if you haven't seen any of our chats with her, you absolutely should. She did one last week about how to protect bands as a fan, like things you can keep bands safe from and how to appreciate them and support them. But she left a great message kind of going over Hide. Like her thoughts on Hide from an industry perspective. So I'm going to add this. Be silent for a second just so I can listen through the stream, and hopefully it should play the audio. Let's see. Okay, I can't stop it once it starts, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. The important thing is to start. So let me know in the chat if you can hear this. and I listen as well.
Hello everybody, Lori from V-Star Promotion here. Sorry I can't make it live. I was planning to, but something came up. Anyway, I'm here to talk a little bit about the influence that Hide had on the current generation of visual kei musicians. It's kind of almost overwhelming how much of a presence his legacy still has on the current industry. There's so many people that are still inspired by him and look up to him as the type of musician that they want to become. The amount of people who have said that he is their inspiration and their favorite guitarist or their favorite musician is incredible, even after so long. So it goes to show how much of an important person he was and how influential he was and still is. A big example of a band that I work with that is so heavily inspired by Hide and X Japan in general is Rising Rebellion. Their sound and their music is heavily influenced by X Japan, by Hide. And Rising Rebellion's guitarist Taji especially is heavily influenced by Hide. In his styling, the way he writes music, because he's the main composer, everything along those lines. Of course, they've put a more modern twist on it, but you can still see the core value and where the influence has come from, which is quite obvious, X Japan. And if you haven't seen it already, Rising Rebellion has actually even done a cover of X Japan's Rusty Nail, and I know during recording that was something that was very, very important to them, and they wanted to do it well. And in my opinion, they did a fantastic job. So it's available on YouTube. Be sure to check it out. And honestly, just talking about that is not even the tip of the iceberg. There's so many more artists that was influenced by Hide. So even though he's gone, his legacy still continues to be very, very strong. At V-Star Promotion, we also work very closely with Seiichi Hoshiko, VK Oyaji. Many of you may know him from his short live streams at the Stylish Rave live events. He's a incredibly important person in the visual kei industry. He was part of Shocks. He organizes the Stylish Rave live streams. He does Nico Nico events. He does so many things in the industry, and he's been doing it for so long. And he was also very good friends with Hide. And he has said publicly that Hide's death had a huge impact on him because they were such good friends. And for a while, he was kind of depressed. However, he also said that one day he realized that he needs to continue working in this industry to make it the kind of industry that Hide wanted it to be. So that's another way in which Hide's legacy and passion for this industry, for visual kei, still continues to live on. So it's not only the musicians or the promoters, but the fans who all still remember Hide fondly. And it's going to continue on because he was that kind of person that was so important and had so much passion and so much life and so much, honestly, still to give. And it's going to be continuously missed, but he's always going to be appreciated for what he did give and what he was. And for me, that's all I can say about this topic at this time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting. And be sure to check out Rides in Rebellion. Be sure to check out B-Star Promotions Facebook page and all that fun stuff. Enjoy the rest of the stream. Have fun.
Okay. Yeah, there's just let me go ahead and switch this off just to make sure it doesn't come back and bother me. Okay. All right. And I'm coming back through the sound. Thanks for working through this with me, guys. This is fun to figure out. Yeah, she. I was really glad that Lori, and she's probably going to be watching this later. Had the opinions that she did, because it was just. That was like the exact same reaction was when I was like, all right, I should do a topic. I want to stream about Hide and like the impact of his legacy. And then I like sat down to write stuff out and I was like, I will be here for a whole day listing and researching. I'll be here for a week, months. Like I wouldn't even know where to start. I can kind of hear that at the beginning, you know, it's like he's literally influences so many different artists. And I really didn't even think about it until, I re-listened to his albums this week. And this is coming right after I've been on like a huge binge of like, you know, the most high quality like indie bands and baby bands I can find and stuff like that. And Rides in Rebellion would absolutely qualify. By the way, someone asked, someone answered it in chat, but Rides in Rebellion, if you guys, let me see if I can pull up what they look like, but that is one of the bands that Lori works with, and they are absolutely inspired by X Japan. They have an electronic twist to like the symphonic metal, symphonic rock sort of vibe, but let's see. So the reason that I put this up is that this is Seichi Hoshiko, who Lori was talking about. And from my understanding, the way she explained it to me is that these two, Hide and Hoshiko, are who came up with Visual Kei, like the, you know, the manifestation of the term itself. You know, it came from X Japan, it got solidified specifically. That I believe that's where, you know, it came from. Or where it was coined, I guess, you know. Let's see. So this is Rides in Rebellion, for example, and you can kind of see that. Let me make sure that shows up okay on screen. If you imagine that this is like they are very much like a digital X Japan. So let's see, how did that come out? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's showing up. So yeah. And they did a great cover of Rusty Nail by X Japan. But what I was saying was that I was listening to like a bunch of, you know, really high quality bands, like indie bands like Rides in Rebellion. And the guys that really know their music are all like taking inspiration from Hide. And I mean that in a good way. It's like they know what they're doing. And so they know to, if you're smart, you know, you don't try and do everything yourself. You try and learn from the masters and things like that. Hide was setting trends with guitar, different types of guitar riffs, experimenting with jazz rock, slow songs, funky songs. I heard a fiddle in a remix of, or in a the Crystal Lake rendition of 50/50 on the end of one of his albums. Like he did so many things. He always kept it fresh, but he he never let it get cheap. So, which is like a huge accomplishment, a huge inspiration. And any given artist would be totally justified in picking two of the like types of experimentation he did and just trying to spend a whole career honing that. Whereas, you know, this guy was able to just knock it out of the park, like track after track after track like that. So, let's see. Let me read chat for a second. I'm actually going to put in the next question. So, we're going to get into some real stuff next. Watch. Let me know if I accidentally asked the same question twice. I've got a lot on my mind tonight that I want to talk about, so I apologize in advance if that happens. So the new chat question is, what is your favorite Hide song or album? Let me read through the chat because I saw some people saying things. Yeah. Oh, just following up on the drinking culture, Miko was adding, too bad, especially if you're a guy, if you're a salary man and your boss asks you to go out to drink, you better go. Yeah, I mean, I'd go, you know. But it's really sad, the drinking culture in Japan, especially if you're a dude, is very forceful and demanding. Yeah, I'll have to look into it because it's not super demanding here. Here it's more like, I'm speaking as someone who has a professional salary life outside of this website. That kind of stuff isn't required. It's not expected, but if people are comfortable in those environments and they're able to have a good time and have a safe time, and it is possible. It's just not always a trend. Then they can really use it to their advantage to get ahead, but it's not like you're being kept behind if you don't partake in that, you know. There's plenty of people that don't go out to happy hour because they've got kids, you know, and in the States that's like perfectly acceptable, you know. It's like, you know, you got to go home, you've got newborn kids and you got to go meet your husband or wife at home and help take care of them. Yeah, no time for happy hour at 7 p.m., you know. See, I don't know if I read that one already, actually, apologize. So his legacy is big, like you only have to see pics of Hide Memorial last weekend, so many fans there. Yeah, maybe I'll bring up some pics of that if we get to the memorials, because the memorials have been pretty heartfelt and epic on most fronts, I think, on all fronts, I think. And yeah, Asuka backs or agrees it's not force expected in the U.S. So okay, cool. Sorry, I thought there was there were more comments, but yeah, the legacy thing is you know, it's literally every song in his discography has influenced somebody, and that's really amazing. And you know, I don't like to gush about artists and stuff like that, you know, excessively, you know, I don't but that's really like, it's really something, like if you really see it. And it's like they compare him to Kurt Cobain, but he's more than Kurt Cobain. Like, this is like if Kurt Cobain's significance was expanded outside of punk rock and grunge and into like 10 other different genres around it, you know. So yeah. Okay, moving on. We're going to get into a little bit of the ex-Japan history. Make sure you answer the question, like what your favorite Hide song or album is. Doesn't have to be a solo career. It can be something you did with ex-Japan if that makes it easier. So yeah, We'll talk about his early life and his time in X Japan a little bit, and then I'm going to read Winona's statement next. So yeah, let's get into that. Okay. So basically, if you're wondering where I'm getting the information from, or where this is coming from, it's I pulled together a variety of sources and just kind of writ some brief conversational bits. Just some interesting facts, interesting things about him that I didn't know. I'm just gonna read it through. We're not gonna make this a class or anything like that. So, yeah. So let's get into Hide's early life. So yeah, he had a. I won't go too early. I'll start with. Let's see. One thing that I thought was interesting is that he was actually studying cosmetology and fashion back in the day, like in 1983, at Hollywood University of Beauty and Fashion, which is in Roppongi Hills. And he actually got a beautification license, so it's like he's really good. He gets a lot of compliment about his looks and stuff, like his styles and stuff, and it's like, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like he went to school for it. He had a band called Saber Tiger. Prior to X Japan, it was called Saber Tiger initially, and then they changed like a saber, Saber, and then they changed it to Saber Tiger, or Saver Tiger with a V, to avoid conflicting with, I guess, another band's name. And he did that for a few years. He's so if we're in 1981. He forms the band Saber Tiger. He goes to school for cosmetology in 1983. While he's doing that, and graduates in 1984. And he eventually ended the band. The band members were changing a lot. That wasn't very cool with him. But the reason I bring that up is, one, I thought, well, the beautician license kind of like, I was like, oh, there's a little behind the scenes, a little peek behind the curtain as to what's going on, how he got so good, But the reason I bring up Saber Tiger is because the one of the vocalists and the vocalist Kyo and the drummer Tetsu both went on to Derlinger. They went on to become part of Derlinger. So you're gonna see there's a ton of crossover in Hide's life, and if I get any of this wrong, or you think I get any of this wrong, like, feel free to correct me in the chat. I did do a bit of research on this, but my goal is to just kind of give some interesting tidbits, kind of give you an idea of of each part of this, and then get really into the music eventually. But I definitely want to cover some of the history and stuff like that. So X Japan, we've covered X Japan, in a few in a few streams in the past. So I think most people are familiar with their story and everything like that. I will say it's interesting that I heard someone make a good point, or bring up the fact that he was one of the last. He was the last of the original members, I believe, to join X Japan. And Yoshiki convinced him to join the band, and I think that's interesting because if I understand correctly, the story is that he might have been ending his music career at that point. And then at the same time, while he was in X Japan, with X Japan, it's kind of difficult to say 100% certain, I feel like, who does what in the composition. But from my understanding, the majority of X Japan's composition credits go to Yoshiki. And if Yoshiki can compose a symphony, he can compose a he can compose all the instruments in a band. So it kind of makes sense. But if that's the case and we're following that logic, and we also, we think about Hide. Hide is a very talented guitarist and everything. The specific dynamic of X Japan really made it possible for Hide to have his solo project. Because if you listen to his solo music, like Hide with Spread Beaver, it's very different it's very clearly different from like the power metal of X Japan. So I just thought that was like an interesting dynamic, that it's like you're part of a big band and it blows up. You write some of these songs, or you compose some of the songs, because he does have composition credits on numerous songs, and you're probably very involved in it and everything like that. But I feel like he was just out of that. I feel like he was a really creative person, and then he might have been just out of the creative process control enough that it gave him a desire to do a solo project in his downtime. And I think that was great, because it's like, if that situation hadn't happened, we wouldn't have gotten like all this music that I really like. And I'll get into the music too, because I really like Hide's music. But let's see. I'm going to check the chat real quick. And also check my notes, make sure I'm not missing anything. So, before I check the chat, let me just make sure I cap off anything else noteworthy. X Japan had their farewell show in 1997, obviously. But his career started as a solo artist in 1993, and there was a song called "Frozen Bug" that he did with Inarin and Jay of Lunacy. It was under a band called Mass, which has asterisks in between the all capital lettered letters, and the reason I bring that up is that Hide was very good at Hide's who introduced Lunacy to Yoshiki. So this guy, and we'll try and get into it, because I wasn't able to research a ton of it, but it's really not hard to do. But he had his own record label. It's called Lemonade, like all capitals LEMON, and then lowercase ed. So Lemonade, or Lemonade, if you want to call it that, if that's how it's pronounced. And he signed some bands there, but like he had introduced bands that he enjoyed to Yoshiki, and then Yoshiki had his record label, which was called Ecstasy, EXTASY, all kinds of cool spellings, guys. And so two of those bands, were Lunacy and Glay. And so like, he was also instrumental in, everybody, there's so many facets of him that it's like really hard to keep track, but it's like, of his legacy, I guess. But it's like he was also directly involved in like that original close-knit like group that had to get built of like all the original bands and things like that. So main key point is, just for if anybody didn't know it, he joined X Japan, and then he started his solo career at while he was in X Japan, and then his solo career briefly outlived his time in X Japan, and then this was running right up to his death. And we can get into his solo career in a second. So now I'm going to read chat. Let's see if anybody answered the question. What's your favorite Hide song or album? My favorite songs are, this is Trim. My favorite songs are Rocket Dive, Dice and Scanner, and well, Pink Spider because it's iconic. Yeah, Pink Spider is yeah, it's very iconic. I actually Pink Spider was one of the last songs I ever got around to listening to by Hide, because the way I listened to him was not like with a friend or a fan. It was literally just like, getting his CDs and just kind of skipping around until I found stuff I was into, or whatever. So I would just listen at the beginning. It was just at a time I was very lazy about it. So I would listen to the beginning of the track and then skip to the next one. And yeah, I don't know why I never got hit by Pink Spider until like I got older and more mature, I guess. I don't know. But Rocket Dive was what hit me really hard. I was like, this is great. Dice and Scanner are both very, yeah, Scanner is like, yeah, I'm with you on that, man. With X, I will say Drain, it was composed by him and Toshi, yeah. Emily says, answer to the question, I'm still learning more about Hide. I'm listening to a lot of X Japan. I am listening more to Hide. Like Yoshiki said, you don't have to be a fan. It's about life, but I am a fan. Yeah. I don't know if I'm at the point where I'm a fan yet, because I still don't listen to his music enough, but that's because I listen to a lot of music, to run the site. So, there's I have like it's really bad at this point. I have like a sky high list of like, or I have like a sky high like requirements for like stuff to go in my daily list, and it's usually all ear candy, like, stuff like Inside Beasts Are Ugly by the Gazette, or some of the better Dataroma songs. So it's like, it's not the deep amazing stuff, but like I do have I do have my moments. And Hide is somewhere in between there, Hide is just like about feeling happy, as was what it was at this point. So that's why I said, like, I think I'm going to be listening to him more, is because it was like I had just been through like a pretty hectic couple of weeks, and just listening to it was just like, it's just like super chill and super nice, and it hits you. And I'm gonna talk about the way the music hits you in a minute. So there's some material of Saber Tiger on YouTube. Interesting. But Lunacy signed with Yoshiki's label. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I said them in the same sentence, so maybe it sounded similar, but he had his record label that he signed other bands to, other artists to. I believe Cut, Cutt, and Ken Lloyd, if you guys are familiar with those. But yeah, the bigger bands that I mentioned were signed to Yoshiki's label. So Emily again says, with the dates you were saying, I wasn't even born yet. And then the dates where I was born after 1996, I was still in Russia as a baby. You can tell I'm still very new to Hide. Yeah, this is, yeah, this was, a lot of this happened before I was born too. I was born in 1992. So, and I'm very bad personally with like any kind of like, classic music. Like, my dad's been helping me with it because he listens to the Rolling Stones a lot. So he's been helping me like make sure I'm caught up on some of that when we're in the car. It's more that he requests that I turn off the Japanese music and turn on the some good old golden oldies. But it's actually it's good and healthy for me because I'm doing older, learning the roots and stuff. And so that's kind of, I've also been doing that on the side with the older music. So. But you can relate on a personal level, Yoshiki and I. But Emily can relate on a personal level because Yoshiki and her lost their best friends to killing themselves. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah, this is yeah. Like I guess I wasn't inaccurate when I said that, like, it impacts a lot of people. And also, GS love the Gazette as well. Yeah, definitely do. By the way, that wasn't like a Gazette diss. They're one of my favorite bands. But when I said it was ear candy, it's definitely. I listen to the hyper energetic like Side Gazette when I'm, at my tippy top playlist when it's like go do things, get things done. Okay, enough rambling, enough chat, and enough chat reading. What do we have next on the list? We have another question. I have another question for you guys. Yeah, here we go. And we'll cover some of this later. Let's see. Let me change it back to this. And then we will do this. Oh boy. Oh boy. Sorry about that, chat. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so I know some of you aren't... you guys get the gist of it right now, right? I can get rid of this beginning part so the text fits on the screen. So I know some of you aren't super familiar with Hide. So if this doesn't quite apply to you, that's okay. But for those of you that have listened to any, what are some influences you've seen from Hide in Visual Kei bands today? And basically any that stick out to you the most is like, oh, wow. Like, I'll give you one, for example. I need to find it. Oh no, the memory's slipping. The track's slipping my memory. Maybe someone in the chat knows. I'll find it when I get a chance. But one of the tracks that I was less familiar with, the guitar riff in it, is there's a song by Gotcha Rocka that was their first single with a PV called High Drag, and it has an almost identical kind of attitude and like guitar riff to it. And I don't think they were like ripping him off or anything. I think it was just like a really that kind of direct inspiration. But like as soon as I heard it, from Hide, and I wasn't familiar with this song. I'll have to look it up so you guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, okay, let's get into solo career with Spread Beaver. So best band name ever, first of all. This guy was great with words. Let's see. Do I have a more applicable image? I do. This will do it. This will definitely do it. Oh, you know what? Let me not do it there. I'll do it here. All right. Hide with Spread Beaver. Also just Hide. All things his solo project. It's a little bit confusing. I believe the first two albums, he released 3 solo albums. I believe the first 2 solo albums were just done as Hide. And then the third one, which came out after he died, that was the unfinished one. That one came out as what was officially released as Hide with Spread Beaver, I think. Very in debate, I think. Maybe not. Okay, yeah. So he had three solo albums, and I think the most iconic one was his last one, which is kind of interesting because which was called Jazzu. Oh, I have to. Yeah, we're gonna have to use this as the image, right? Does that show up for you, chat? There we go. Let me check and see where the chat is. Might be lagging behind. Nope. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, this is coming through for you guys. So there's his nice. There's a Jazzu. Yeah. So yeah. So this was like a really just like again trying to figure out how to best describe it, but it's like every single song on these albums is wonderful, and not just wonderful, they're all influential. Like all of them. Rocket Dive is obviously iconic. Pink Spider is extremely iconic. Doubt 97, the mixed lemonade jelly mix. I believe Doubt 97. Let me just play a clip real quick for myself. Yeah. Okay. So there's a track called. Let me just go ahead and pull up. I will use CD Japan. For this. Yeah, so this is the or not CD Japan. I will use Wikipedia for this. So this is the track list of Jazzu. So this song right here, Doubt 97, specifically this jelly mix. It has this really rapid guitar, frenetic like guitar riff. But at the same time, there's some kind of sound on top of it that's either a really distorted guitar or some sort of like distorted electronic music or something. It basically just creates like, or both. It basically just creates like this crazy energetic like sound, and it's contrasted really well with what comes right before it at the beginning, which is like a slow like kind of like almost like a swaggering kind of like set of guitar riffs, and then it just bumps into like this like not headbanging, like head whipping kind of stuff. And it's stuff like that will like always stick out as like distinctly Visual K to me, like that distinct kind of crazy, you know, like that distinct kind of beast mode, you know. But yeah, so songs like that are like, those are like the ones that, you know, I'm still digging up, to be honest, that I can just find like, you know, more and more influences and things like that. Obviously Rocket Dive, which I'll never get over the English lyrics, you know, for the intro and stuff. I know it's like a dead meme probably for everyone at this point, but just the fact that he made a smash hit by saying, "Come on, let me go, let me show my rocket, come on, baby, go," or "Baby, blow my rocket," something like that. And that he had like a smash hit with that. Well done. I don't think that would have been possible in the States at that time. When did that come out? 1998. I don't think they were ready for that. Slipknot hadn't dropped their first album yet, so they hadn't been. The society hadn't been shocked with anything overtly crazy enough to normalize, you know, that kind of lyrics. I don't know. It's funny to me, but so yeah, that's Jazzu, I guess, in a general sense. The one I really wanted to talk about was Wikipedia is actually kind of on point with their genre labeling sometime. So industrial rock is is a good way to describe it, mixed with alternative rock. They're missing punk rock though. So I think Science is my favorite album by them. So if you want to see what, I can put this up on screen for a second. This is what the go away Wikipedia. Thank you for fair use though. But yeah, so that's Science. You know, like some nice cans of paint and things like that. But let me get into the track list before I forget. So first of all, you have Science. I think it's really interesting that Hide's album tracks are like they're full track length, like intro. They have full all his albums have full length intro and outro tracks, and they're really like bordering on the edge of like song territory, you know. Like let me pull up. I re-listened to like a ton of music today. If I am sorry, give me 1 second just to make sure I'm talking about the right tracks on here. So bad Jeff doesn't know all his songs ahead of time. Yep. Just takes one second. So basically, Science right here, this is it's basically like a J-Rock style theme. A James Bond J-Rock theme, kind of. You know, it's got the trumpets of like the James Bond series, and then I want to say, I believe, you know, as the song goes on, because the song is not just like a short instrumental, it evolves into like almost an entirely full song by the end of it. You know, guitars come in. It's not just like some electronic music and then that's the start of it. And I thought that was interesting because it's like that could get really boring if you weren't careful. But obviously Hide was not a very boring guy. But it's like, for example, if you had a band that played with a lot of electronic music, and they do electronic intros, they would have to be, you know, this track's length is 318. They have to be on their game to get to that, to get to get a track, an intro track out there that was interesting enough to keep you engaged for that long and still have you wanting to listen to the rest of the album. And you'd be switching right into more rock afterwards, like straight into more rock. So if like they weren't ready to leave what they were listening to, like, yeah. But yeah, solid intro track. And I bring all that up because we've all heard, I think, like James Bond style, like jazzy, like intros and you know, in songs and stuff. Bug Lug did it for what did they do it for? They did it for their first album, I think. No, it might have been their second album. Yeah, it was their second album. Their first album was some chaotic punk rock plus electronic rendition of carnival music. But, you know, Bug Lug had like a cool, like, you know, trumpet style, jazzy, like James Bond style intro. So, like, you still see those influences today, you know. But I didn't want to just talk about the intro track on this album. So Bacteria, which is a PV track, that's one of my favorite songs. I actually get a lot of vibes in the verses from like I feel like old school Vamps was like inspired by that. I know Hyde was actually really influenced by Hide. Hide influenced everybody, you know, but I hear in that what became old school Vamps, you know, kind of like the boogie punk kind of style in there, and then it goes into like a catchy chorus, but it's so rough singing and things like that. It's very this album like alternates or flows between being like very industrial and very like and just surprising you. Like I believe the lemonade ice cream one here, which is like this version is like really soft. Let me see if I'm thinking of the right one. Yeah, okay, so this one, what's crazy about this, and keep in mind this came out in 1996, this song sounds like Gorillaz, like before Gorillaz, like newer style Gorillaz. Like if you look up Up on Melancholy Hill by the Gorillaz, this sounds like that sound. And I know the Gorillaz were in a conceptual stage and had put out some stuff, but I don't like in the late 90s, but I don't know if they were around back in 1996. But that blew my mind. Like, so if you can get I know Jazoo has like all the hits on it, so to speak, but it's like if you can get a hold of Science is fascinating because you can find all kinds of like stuff. I honestly, I've listened to this a lot, but I had really passed on this album like in the past. That past. I've been listening to it a lot recently, like when I was reviewing and stuff. But it's like I really got hooked in. I got sucked in by the hits, you know. And so I was listening to Jazoo a lot, and you know, a little bit of the first album too. I skipped over Science, except for Bacteria for some reason. So, but like if you go through this, like you know, and the first album's like that too. Like I want to say Scanner is one of the songs that really hit, you know, stuck out to me a lot. Here's the 50/50 Crystal Lake version I was talking about. 50/50, there's another one that's like a jazzy, catchy, I don't know, jazz rock, or it's got some kind of like rhythm, some kind of dance fever rhythm to it, you know. Tell Me is a classic, you know. But in terms of like what really interests me is if you guys want me to talk a little bit more about the first album, I can, but it's just I have a lot, you know, to say, and the reason I focused a lot on the second album and then the third album is the third album is like really iconic, and it was like it's the farthest that we know where he's gone. But I don't know, this Science really stuck out to me as having a huge like just like a giant broad array of like, it's like looking at it now, it's like he was predicting the future in terms of like what would become hits in Visual K, because it's like it's a bunch of different stuff and none of it's obvious, you know. It's all Visual K tropes now, you know, but or tropes, or it's like I've heard that somewhere before. It's a lot of I heard that somewhere before, but I'm not sure what to call it. And then like usually someone like me, when they're writing a review, we kind of have to figure out how to describe it and come up with crazy metaphors, and then, you know, send it to each other. Send, you know, we send, if one of us is an editor, we send it to the other editor to like help us translate it into English, because we're trying to figure out what these guys' thought process is. But that is like Hide. So yeah, lots of deja vu, Hisoku. Yeah, let me check the chat real quick. Man, it's already been an hour and a half, hasn't it? Yeah. So I might do a part 2 stream like in a week or so, or I might write an article, to be honest, is really what I should do. It'd be fun to do like a tree, like a map or something that's like a what's that oh, there's a name for this. I don't know what it's called. Like a family tree of Visual K tropes or something like that. But like get really accurate about it. Like start with Hide, you know, and or like a timeline. Like a splitting timeline. Is that a thing? Splitting timeline. I don't want to say like random stuff and you guys don't know what I'm talking about. Diverging timeline, I guess. Okay. Yeah, that's good enough, I guess. Let's see. You know, stuff like this. I inadvertently am going a little nerdy on you guys. Google's apparently a gamer. They gave me the diverging timelines of the Legend of Zelda video games, but it's like if this was like Hide's like albums, and then it's like some of those tracks ended up over here, some of those tracks ended up over here, and then like group them and stuff like that. This is a really bad example in anything other than to explain to kind of say the concept, because there's no way we would put up something like this on our site, but we can make it look cool and awesome and everything. I'm doing my best to like kind of explain my thoughts on it right now, but I think all I'm going to be able to do is just kind of get through your conversation. But you guys, let me know if you want me to map out these albums a little bit more. Okay, let's check the chat a little bit more, and then I will go ahead and read Winona's statement, because I don't want it to get too late into the live stream before. But before I read. Okay, let's see. We're born in the same year, Jeff. What up, Asuka? Let's see. I'm sorry about that. I won't read it out loud, but I wish you best of luck with that. I know it's hard, so I hope this helps. I just like to make Visual K fans happy, or other people who like Visual K, because I know some people get lonely. Like me, I'm stuck down here in Florida, so for the longest time I didn't have people to share and talk about this stuff with. So unless I converted people into it. So hopefully this takes your mind off it. But yeah, visual influences among guitarists are plenty. There's a new documentary about Hide. I watched the trailer the other day. Hopefully we can see it overseas eventually. I want to look that up, actually. That'll be interesting. 2 days ago on Billboard. Yeah, let's talk about it. Or let's look at it. Live React. VKH Live React. Let's go. Where are we? Let me zoom in. Oh my God. Ads. Trying to make it a point to not ever make our site's ads be even close to this invasive. Like, this is unacceptable. Do you see how it's moving around like that? Yeah. Anyway. Let's see. 20 years after the sudden passing of ex-Japan guitarist Hide, a new documentary called Hurry Go Round. Oh, okay. Featuring previously unreleased footage of the late iconic Visual K musician will hit Japanese theaters on May 26th. The trailer shows the navigator and actor, who was too young at the time of Hide's death to have known about him, discovering the charismatic artist's legacy by following the final moments of his life. So it's a documentary. It shows the navigator. I don't know why they use the word navigator. It's a little strange. I'll have to watch the trailer, but they include recent shots of LA, where Hide spent 3 months shortly before he passed away, and never before seen actual footage from the day before his death. The band's leader Yoshiki also appears in an interview saying, with a slight catch in his voice, "I probably changed Hide's life. If I hadn't asked him to join, he might still be alive." Oh, wow. Sorry, that was the wrong tone for that. I thought he was like about to like make a joke, like, see, like I I changed his life. He might have quit music, but oh man, he went dark there. If I hadn't asked him to join, he might still be alive. Uh, you can't blame yourself like that, man. Um, stuff, stuff happens. No need to torture yourself more than you have to, The guitarist died May 2nd, 1998 at the height of his fame. That's like the real kicker, right? Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink. My tea. The documentary was produced as part of the Hide 20th Memorial Project. Okay. I've been out of the loop the last week and a half about a lot of news. I've missed a lot of news, so I apologize if this is old news. So we did report on some of this, I believe. So, but yeah, thanks for the tip. Wow, I never liked Gorillaz. If you look up Melancholy Hill, it's like a nice, pleasant song. It's not. It's not quite always like Gorillaz, so I guess that would mean it's different. So maybe there's more of a chance you won't like it. Okay, cool. He wanted to change the industry, and I think he actually did. Yeah, that's what's crazy, is because it's weird talking about this because there's so many music documentaries I've seen, or just online interviews for Western bands, right? Like American bands, where it's he was iconic, he was a legend, he changed everything, and it's no offense to the Rolling Stones, but what impact is the Rolling Stones having, today, right? So it started to wear on me eventually, it's yeah, okay, he was a big deal, but it's history, everything fades with time. So it's you got to be someone really special. And so finding that, and then a few years, and then 3, 4, 5 years back, I find this guy Hide, and just listening to his stuff, and it's yeah, this is it. I was so guarded, ready to be okay, it's another cliche, but it's yeah, yeah, he changed everything. It's crazy. So yeah, let me let's see. And hey, what up, Florida? Same time zone here. Oh, cool, Emily. Sweet. Hopefully that means you'll be able to make the streams, because I try to keep them at reasonable hours, even though I start at 10. It's a little after midnight. So, Yoshiki loves melodrama sometimes. Don't take it too seriously. Yeah, it just was about to make me look bad reading it, because I literally thought he was gonna make a joke, and then he went super dark, and it's you're gonna make a dark half joke and then put it in print with no inflection. It's oh man. I fired shots, I'm assuming at Rolling Stones. Oh god. By the way, if you were ever curious what the Rolling Stones rebirthed in the bodies of millennials looks like, look up a band called, it might even be Generation Z. Look up a band called Greta Van Fleet, Greta space van, like a van you drive, and fleet, fleet of foot. Yeah. They got pretty popular pretty fast because they sound a lot like the Rolling Stones. Anyway, all right. I think the last question I'm going to do is did we do what are some influences you've seen in I read some of those, right? Well, I talked about mine, so I'll leave that question up there. Now I want to read Winona's statement. Winona sent me. Winona could not make it tonight, but she wanted me to read her statement about it. Like, she wrote a statement out, kind of like how Lori had an audio statement. So, although I was, so this is Winona. Although I was too young to follow him when he was alive, I instantly became a fan of Hide once I heard Pink Spider. It was around the time I first was getting into J-Rock and Visual K. That I first got into him. And I did a lot of research to try and catch up with everything in the scene. Like a lot of people, I found his music after finding X Japan. Knowing what an influence he was to the scene made me want to learn more. So I dove into his discography. He had so much skill, and his fans know it too. He was kind-hearted, befriending a girl named Mayuko. She was diagnosed with Norman Landing cancer when she was born and had written a letter asking to meet him. The story of their friendship is pretty well known among his fans. I believe it's the bone marrow cancer story. The story of their friendship is pretty well known among his fans, but it is something that always touched my heart. The world didn't just lose a great musician, but a very caring person. Yeah, it's very true. Everything I've read about him just seems to indicate he was a really sweet guy, like a good guy, that actually like gave a shit, So, okay, so we've kind of covered his death, but wait, let me see. We've kind of covered his death. Maybe I can get into it a little bit more, just in case it wasn't clear earlier. So basically, the situation surrounding it, for anyone who missed it, was that Hide was found. He was found dead in his apartment. He had seemed to have hung himself from his doorknob. And I believe it was initially believed to be a suicide, but the band members have stated on multiple occasions. Taiji said it in his autobiography. Yoshiki had said it in the past, and then they just very definitively stated it in We Are X, in case people forgot or weren't sure. But we almost lost my train of thought. Basically, it's the opinion of the band members that he was doing a neck stretching exercise, where you put a rope or rag under your neck, which is what he had, with some kind of rag tied around the doorknob, and it's like pulling up like this and pulling your neck up, and then you're sinking back against the door and the doorknob, and so it's like stretching your neck. Yoshiki says that he's done it himself several times, and so he also appeared to have come home drunk. So it looks like what they believe is that he came home drunk and he tried to do the neck exercise and he messed it up somehow and killed himself while he was drunk. Which honestly sounds a little silly and unfortunate and unnecessary if you look at it from the perspective of, oh, well, if he just hadn't been drunk, he wouldn't have died so needlessly and stuff like that. But when you listen to the way the other band members talk about Hide, which is like he has like really strong emotions, he loves really strongly. He gets hurt a lot, or people try to hurt him a lot. But in spite of the fact that he's being hurt, he just keeps smiling, and he writes a lot about suicide in his lyrics, but he writes about a lot of powerful feelings in his lyrics as well, not all bad. and just his general nature, seeing it when he was live, like, or seeing him do it when he was performing live and things like that, you can tell it's more tied into like the personality. It's like it's just the risk of living like a very chaotic creative life. And I don't really think it's something that you can just fault onto one thing like alcohol abuse. Yeah, just like at like a deeper, when you get to a deeper level, like, because if it wasn't alcohol, it might have been something else. If he was constantly frantic and constantly stressed and constantly just living like this really outburst of a life, basically, in a world that's not designed for that, in a world that's designed to kill people like that, just like due to evolution. I know that's like fucked up to say, but it's like, there's a lot of dangerous shit out there, and so there's a lot of people that are all following very careful plans. It could have been anything. He could have just been like playing around and like just jokingly jaywalked and got hit by a car. I've known people like that. And they do best when they're like really isolated away from like the grind, like the world. So like they're miserable in companies, like in corporations, in 9-to-5s and stuff like that. I'm partially like that. I can deal with it, but I'm also partially like that. But like they do best when they have the opportunity to like have a certain layer of like freedom and openness, to just let all of their creative potential out. It's kind of difficult to explain, but it's a very volatile person to be, a very volatile personality to have, I guess. So, yeah, not trying to be armchair psychologist or anything like that. So just take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I didn't know the guy. But it's just kind of what I'm inferring from, how his bandmates are talking about stuff. So I like how I had like all of these topics like lined up, but then they just all like tied into each other. So like by the time I get to them, I'm like, I've covered at least 30%. Let me respond to a message. Let's see. Sorry about that. May have a guess, maybe not. Trump says, I think his brother also said he believes it was an accident. Okay, yeah. So there you go. Emily says, Yoshiki said most artists did to help stretch the back muscles and the neck, and agreed Jeff from the deeper level. Yeah, I guess so. Okay. I hope you guys will forgive me for moving on. I know there are other parts that I've like covered more, but I don't want to talk about death too much. So, but I think I got kind of into it, and I think I think I almost don't want to ask the question of like what could have been, like if he kept going. Like, can you imagine if Hide was around, today, like with Extra Pan and stuff like that? Like, how many things that I can see a lot of people, a lot of X fans thinking like that. A lot of things that maybe they think have gone wrong could have gone right. But on that note, I was doing some thinking earlier. Maybe you guys can tell me. This could be a fun question. Okay, take this with a grain of salt. I'm going to be a little generalizing with the actual question. So someone pointed out to me that they got a lot of vibes, a lot of Hide vibes from IV or 4 or IV. Does that come off? Do I need to do it backwards for this camera? I'm not sure. Like the Roman numeral 4 by X Japan that they did a few years back for Saw. And that was interesting because I wasn't I wasn't thinking about that. I think I can kind of see it, and it makes sense because I mean they're honoring him in it. But it kind of hit me the other day when someone pointed it out that X Japan doesn't make power metal anymore. They make rock for the most part, all kinds of rock, like symphonic rock and stuff like that. But Born to Be Free was rock. I'm not sure what you would call IV. Jade was like symphonic rock, wasn't symphonic power metal. So my question is, should new X Japan music borrow from Hide's sound? Because they're now close enough that they can kind of do that. So I don't know. That's a fun one. So we might be having a guest on. I'm not sure yet. But in the meantime, we can also talk about let's see. I mean, the next thing really is legacy. And we have talked about legacy a lot already. So I know we may have covered like a lot of these topics already. But since I've tugged at it a little bit, maybe I can get into it a little bit more. I don't really see his influence like going away, like ever, like I think it's going to take a really long time because the visual kei scene has gotten so good at preserving like a surprising amount of traits of songs that go really far back, like, and it's almost to the point where there's like certain rules, like that's one of the rules of like good visual kei, like, that came from Hide. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but you could kind of say like as a reviewer, I feel like the albums that I reviewed positively kind of follow by this is that if you go diverse with your sound, it can't sound cheap, you have to go that extra miles so that it's, it's fully diverse, but never cheap. That's actually not even just a rule. It's like a trait that you see these bands that it's like, they should not be this diverse. Like they're a metalcore band. Why are they doing jazz metal? Or they're a pop rock band. Why are they doing like a heavy song and this and that? So, but they do, and Hide did it the best from what I can see. Another one is that catchy choruses. This was another one I was thinking of that, just kind of comparing between like J-rock and Western rock. Like catchy choruses are nothing new in any genre, right? Pop music, obviously, nothing new whatsoever, but you can hate a song and still listen to it because of its catchy chorus, right? What was that Ed Sheeran song that did it? To Everyone. I actually really liked it. But by the end of it, it was played so much, and it just wasn't built for that kind of a song that people hated it. It was "Shape of You" by Ed Sheeran, like a year ago, or Despacito, like that kind of stuff. It's like you know, there's a lot of people that listen to like rock music, I feel like, that are gonna get what I'm talking about when it's like you hate it but you're bobbing your head to it and you did listen to it, so like, you know, or something like that, or you didn't like walk out of the room when it got played because you were, you know. Hide, with his catchy choruses, he could hook you with his catchy chorus, but he always made you. He didn't just like. Not only did his catchy choruses sound good or meaningful, you appreciated them. They made you feel. He made you feel for the catchy chorus. You know, you don't have to. That's not really an obligation. If I look at art in a commercial, from a commercial lens, which is always a bad idea to do, but people do it. So it's like, if you have a catchy song and the listener's listening, then the product is sold. So what's the point of making them really appreciate the catchy song? You just got them hooked on like a cheap thrill kind of thing. But Hide's songs get stuck in my head, but it's like they replay and I don't feel like I'm going crazy. I feel just like I'm really enjoying them being stuck in my head. So there's quality there. And I feel like the good visual kei bands do that. So maybe that one's not as universally followed, but I feel like even the most like generic of visual kei choruses still sounds like really fresh to someone outside the scene. It just wouldn't sound that fresh to like people inside the scene. Okay, so we're going to have let's see. I will read the chat and I will leave you with another question. But we're going to have a guest on, if I can get this set up. But I'm going to have to disappear for a moment to do that. So let me read the chat and then I will switch over. I will put the question at the top of the label on the other screen, and then I will go set up the guest. Okay. But let's check. Rest in peace, Hide, and my buddy as well. I want to hug you. Yeah, let's celebrate his life instead. Yeah, that's kind of what I've always ended up doing. The guitar parts of that song are most likely from Dahlia sessions. Okay. About Hide-san's personality type, a lot of artists seem to have similar personalities. Yeah. What I'm touching on wasn't exactly like revolutionary or anything like that. You just really see it at some point. You can't help but comment on it, you know, because people should know. People should keep talking about it so that people with any level of like a creative bent know that, you know, they have a very powerful force, but like with great power comes great responsibility, Spider-Man, all that, you know, but it's true. Creative people have a responsibility to find a creative outlet, a responsibility to themselves to find a creative outlet, because otherwise they'll be miserable, you know? So, creative outlets take time, and, you know, if you're really creative and you need a really big creative outlet that takes up a lot of time, you may be faced with the concept of, okay, am I going to be the starving artist type, or am I going to be like a repressed artist, like working class kind of thing? Or, you know, am I going to roll the dice? Am I going to play it safe? And I don't know if there's a right answer for there's not a one size fits all right answer, but it's definitely good to talk about it. So, okay. Asuka says, should they borrow? Relating to my question. So should X Japan's music, should new X Japan music borrow from Hide's sound? You could look at it two ways. One, they could if they want, because at the end of the day, it's music. You work on your influences. Two, no, they shouldn't. Someone could have his opinion uh, out of reverence. Somewhat. No, they shouldn't. Someone could have his opinion out of reverence. So basically, it's like it's too close. It's not. You know, it might be. What would that be? Um, sacrilege in a way. You know, because it's like they have such a close connection that maybe yeah, maybe it's too much. Yeah, maybe it's too much for them to do. Because like, I know that Yoshiki gets crap all the time, and maybe some of it's deserved. I'm still making up my mind, but it's like about using certain events for publicity. And if X Japan had a Hide sound after his 20th anniversary, regardless of how of what the reality is, that's just a bad look. So I see where you're coming from. It's just interesting for me because they're rock now. So they can do whatever they want, really. They don't have to do Hide, but it's just they're back closer to. I don't know really what to do with power metal in terms of like the visual K kind of genre experimentation. Maybe there's more stuff they could have done with that, but yeah, rock much more malleable. They could do. Press 1 in the chat if you want some dubstep X Japan, some electronic or X Japan. Press 666 if you think I just said demonic words. Okay. All right, I'm going to pop off camera real quick. Let me put my next question. I won't make it that one. That would be so mean, and that's going to be a bad look for anyone that pops in while I'm gone. They're just like, nope, dislike. I mean, then again, they could look at it now, but at least I'm explaining myself while I'm talking about it. Okay, I'm gonna go general with this one because I want to hear it from the chat. I want to hear more about the chat. I like to hear about the chat. Okay, so I've been talking a lot. It's very clear, obviously, in case it wasn't clear already. Hide inspired a lot of bands and is still inspiring a lot of bands. So who inspires you like how Hide inspires other bands? If it's Hide, then that's fine. Maybe you list someone besides Hide. Also, I need to copy that because I'm about to switch it over. But yeah, so like that, like supreme role model, like this guy did it right. Maybe he's not around. Maybe it's like he did, where it's like he was gone too soon. He was ahead of his time. All that stuff. You just tell me who it is. It can be a personal story. It can be a celebrity. It can be another artist. It can be Hide. It can be whoever. So I'm going to go get set up with Lori. Lori's going to come on. But I will be back in 5 minutes. So, yeah. So tell me who that is and why they inspire you like it, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, hello chat. I am back. Give me just a second. Gotta get gotta get this changed over. It'll be interesting if that works. See how that worked. Nope. Not quite. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, so this needs to become this. There we go. Yes, so okay. Just to balance this out, I'll stretch this guy out. Oops. We will have a more definitive version of this in the future. But I was very pleasantly surprised to hear that Lori could join us. So, Lori, can you unmute yourself and try and talk? Okay, let me see if that went through chat. Let me know if you heard her just now. Okay, we did not hear. No sound. Okay. Waiting for the stream to catch up. Yeah, let me okay, give me 1 second, chat. I will be right back. 2 minutes. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. First, let me pause this. Okay. Let me see. Let me look up real quick what's going on because there was a couple things. But, yeah, I know. Screen share, no sound. Oh, okay, yeah, that would be good. That's like that's like exactly what I want you on to talk about. So that's why I'm like, all right, we'll try and fix this. Right, yeah. Yeah. And my mic was on. Sorry about that, chat. I'll be right back. Didn't say anything bad though. That's okay. Okay. Hi, chat. Sorry about that. We are actually having some technical difficulties. This one's a little bit out of my skill range. I'll probably figure it out tomorrow, So before I get in over my head, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna wrap this stream up, and then I said we would keep going if there was more interest. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'll just make myself big, and I'll make this go away for the end if I can find it. Oh God. Goodbye. Okay. All right, so let me check and see what your response to the question was. Again, sorry about that. Sorry about the pause. So we're going to go, so like I said, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to open up another stream once this stream ends, and we'll go ahead and wind it down now, because I think this will be good to get into, because we're going to talk about, she's got some good stuff to talk about. So, a lot of legacy stuff, and so this will be really good. So what I'm getting at. So, what we will do? Let me just do a little bit of wrap up here. And first of all, thank you guys, everyone, for coming out and sitting through this, because we really did cover a lot. We talked about a lot. This was my first time doing this, so like doing like a full solo and like with this new project. So. Any feedback that you feel on the stream is much appreciated. Let me see what your answers were to who inspires you, like how he inspires other bands. Wow, a lot of responses. Okay, got some ones for Electronic or X Japan. Very nice. Rick Ruin says Hyde and Vamps. Very cool, very cool. Asuka says, if I say Einstein, would that be relevant? Yeah, sure. Especially given our professions, he's a relevant guy. Emily says, answer to the question, many people that I have met who are like family to me. One is my online sister, very special mother to everyone and just amazing. And I can't explain it, but I love her. That's okay. You don't have to explain it. But that's nice. Asuka says, in my personal projects, my inspirations are some of a few YouTubers in the educational videos category. Oh, okay, cool. Sweet. You'll have to send us if you make any educational videos, Asuka. You'll have to tweet them at us. That'd be cool to see. And yeah, that's pretty much what I did with the streams. I just like kind of followed people online that were like, wow, that's really impressive that you do this. So yeah, good stuff. Emily also says, my auntie online, she is my goofball. She is so amazing and giggly and adorable. I love her. Aw, that's sweet. I like this online relative thing, because I have a few that would apply to. I'll just start using it. 3 would be a certain person in Versailles band. Well, that could be any of them. It totally depends on what kind of like who you like the most in Versailles. Because I could read that as Kamijo, I could read that as Hizaki, and I could read it as Teru. I mean, mainly those 3, but I'm gonna guess Hizaki. I'm not sure. But I have Asuka says I have other professional aspirations as well, but I don't know how I'd fare working 9 to 5, forced to projects and stuff. So I'm thinking it'd be nice if I could build a career on my own. That would be nice. Yeah. That struggle is real. Gets old real fast. But yeah, best of luck to you if you do that. All right. Trem says Patti Smith, and I'm probably a bad person because I don't know Patti Smith. Okay. An American singer, songwriter, poet, and visual artist. Okay, there you go. Who became an influential component of the New York City punk rock movement with her 1975 debut, Horses. It's called the Punk Poet Laureate. I probably know her, but I probably don't know her. That's the current status I'm at with American oldies. Is I know them, but I don't know them. But cool. Asuka says, as for music, Evanescence played a significant role in shaping my tastes because they weren't the first band I had gotten into. I wasn't interested in pop, so I wasn't into any music prior to them. Yeah, I was into Evanescence a lot too. That's cool. Seether was a big one for me. I'm trying to remember who else, but Seether really stands out. My second favorite band, Lacuna Coil. I need to listen to more of them because I keep hearing about them. Or there was a period of time where I was hearing a lot about them and I forgot to get into them. Was the second band that I got into after Evanescence. If it hadn't been for them, I wouldn't have been into Lacuna Coil. And that, my friends, is how I got into metal. Yeah, there you go. Because Lacuna Coil is pretty heavy, right? Or they're kind of getting there. And Emily says, and my friend who is no longer here, just like he inspired me in so many ways, and to always be brave and strong, and to be his brave soldier like he was. He also was a Marine soldier. Oh, well, that's great. Yeah. So he's serving the country too. Well, I'm glad he was an inspiration, and I hope you you stay strong and all that. So best of luck. Okay. And then Trim says, if we stick to VK, yeah, Hide and X are very inspirational. Like, they've been through a lot. And then back to Asuka. And I like, because of that, the first songs I heard from VK bands that really made me look them up. I had known nothing about them were Chizuru by The Gazette, Protoplasm by Rentrayer Soy, and Patchwork by Garugamesh. They were all right up my alley and taste. Yeah, this was that's what's like so weird is it's like tangentially related, but it's still like Hide, but it's like, Patchwork's like heavier than Hide, but it's like you kind of see where this stuff goes, and yeah. Okay, so got through those. Let's see if I got anything else on the list to check out. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. We had a Streamlabs donation. Let me pull it up. See, this won't be a problem like starting tomorrow. When I get it fully integrated. It's anonymous and it said nothing. I just wanted to donate. Oh, thanks. Thank you, whoever that was. I appreciate it. For $5. Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. That was nice. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks so much for joining me on this very special live. I hope it helped you kind of remember and maybe celebrate Hide's death or Hide's life, and help heal from his death, and or try to focus on how he lived versus how he died, and like finding the good in everything. Every major catastrophe or situation that ever happens in life always has something. If it doesn't have something good from it, no silver linings. Silver linings aren't guaranteed, but there is almost always something you can learn from it. Unless it's like the same bad thing happening to you over and over again. And then the thing to learn is that something needs to change drastically, But you can always at least learn. There can always be at least something to learn from it. So we learned a lot from this man, in spite of the fact we learned a lot from this man, and I think his death was very tragic, but I think the fans honored it and honored him, just tremendously, and more importantly, the bands, and have honored him by carrying it on. So Oh, I'm seeing you did great, and this was awesome in the chat. Thanks, guys. It makes me feel good. My next goal is going to be to clean up the display a little bit, get everything moving smoother, and get even a little bit more organized, so it's even a little bit tighter of a flow, so we can get through more in less time and still be able to engage in the chat. So it's a work in process. I'm going to pin the link to the stream that I'm going to do now. I'm going to get off of this stream, and we're going to have Lori from V-Star on. If you didn't hear me before, she was on our previous stream and gave like tremendous information about ways to protect bands online as fans and how to appreciate them. And so that was a great stream. A lot of people, including us, got a lot out of it. And so she has a lot to say about Hide's impact, because she works with a lot of hot topic bands, or bands that are about to become hot topic, is when she finds them and then they become a hot topic. So like Rides in Rebellion, Viva Rush, Deviloof, and she sees a lot of inspiration still. So we're going to talk about that next. I'm just going to end this stream because it's been a while, and also because we're having technical difficulties. And if I go back to old school YouTube, I can do it like a piece of cake. So if you want to join me there, we'll see you there. Otherwise, thanks so much for checking this out. Please like the video, share it with your friends, comment and tell me any of your thoughts on anything. If you have any feedback on anything you'd like to see from the stream, I think this kind of gives you the hint that I can be a lot more dynamic with these setups if I want. So any ideas you've seen or anything like that, check out all the links in the description, and keep an eye out. I'll paste it in the chat. I'll put it in the description. Actually, I won't pin it because I'm not sure how the processing is going to work for allowing comments after the stream. All right. Thanks a bunch, guys. Peace out.